You're fired. And you can forget about any letter of recommendation." Samir Hassan shouted these words with a fury that echoed through the Beverly Hills mansion. The 48-year-old Syrian-American tycoon, owner of a chain of luxury hotels, was red with rage. In his hands, he clutched a financial report he had just discovered about his own company. Across the office, Keisha Williams remained motionless. The 38-year-old African-American cleaning lady showed no surprise, fear, or any emotion that Samir expected to see. She just held the cleaning cloth tightly in her hands and stared at him with a serenity that irritated him even more. "Someone is stealing my company from the inside," Samir continued, banging his fist on the mahogany desk. "Unauthorized transfers, ghost contracts, offshore accounts. And you're the only person who has access to this office when I'm traveling." Keisha had worked for 5 years in that mansion, always discreet, always efficient. She took care of the house with a dedication that impressed even the other employees. But to Samir, she was always just another maid, invisible, replaceable, insignificant. "Mr. Hassan," Keisha said calmly, "I clean your house. I don't touch your computers or documents." "Liar." Samir exploded. "Do you think I'm stupid? Who else would have had the opportunity? My accountant discovered that $2.3 million has been embezzled in the last 6 months. And coincidentally, it started when I increased your access privileges to the house." The accusation was absurd, but Samir needed someone to blame. His company was being investigated by the FBI for money laundering, and the pressure was mounting. Finding a scapegoat seemed like the easiest solution. "I'll give you 24 hours to give me back my money," he said, approaching Keisha in an intimidating manner. "Otherwise, I'll make you regret the day you were born. I'll destroy your life, your reputation. I'll make sure you never get a job anywhere." Keisha stared at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that Samir couldn't quite read. It wasn't fear, it wasn't guilt. It was something much deeper, as if she knew something he didn't. "Mr. Hassan," she said finally, "are you sure you want to blame me for this?" The strange question momentarily confused Samir. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, sir. I just thought it was interesting that you chose today to accuse me." Before Samir could ask what she meant, Keisha placed the cleaning cloth on the table and walked toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" he shouted. "Home," she replied without turning around. "After all, I've been fired." "You have 24 hours." Samir shouted after her. 24 hours or I'll have you destroyed." Keisha stopped in the doorway, turned slightly, and said something that would remain etched in Samir's mind. "Mr. Hassan, sometimes the people we underestimate are the ones we should fear the most." 2 hours later, Samir was in his office drinking whiskey and mulling over the conversation. The more he thought about it, the more those words bothered him. There was something about Keisha's calmness, the way she reacted to the accusations, that didn't make sense. An ordinary employee would have cried, begged, despaired. But Keisha acted as if she knew something he didn't. As if she had cards up her sleeve. "Impossible," Samir muttered to himself. "She's just a cleaning lady." But the doubt grew like a seed planted in fertile ground. That night, unable to sleep, Samir made a decision that would change his life forever. He would go to Keisha's house, unannounced, without ceremony. He wanted to see with his own eyes who the woman who had worked in his home for 5 years really was. If you're enjoying this story of mystery and revelations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because what Samir is about to discover will leave you speechless. The next morning, Samir woke up with the same uneasiness. Keisha's words echoed in his mind like a warning he couldn't decipher. He decided he couldn't wait any longer. At 10 a.m., he drove his Bentley through the streets of Los Angeles until he reached a neighborhood very different from Beverly Hills. The mansions gave way to simple houses, and the wide streets became narrow avenues with rusty lampposts. When he stopped in front of a small, well-kept house, Samir frowned. He had hoped to find something that would confirm his suspicions, perhaps signs of unexplained wealth, expensive cars, some evidence that Keisha was living beyond her means. But Keisha's house was exactly what you would expect from a cleaning lady, modest, with a simple garden and a wooden fence that needed painting. Samir knocked loudly on the door. When it opened, Keisha appeared wearing a simple dress, showing no surprise at seeing him there. "Mr. Hassan," she said calmly, "I've been waiting for you." Waiting? Samir was confused. "What do you mean, waiting?" "Come in," said Keisha, opening the door wider. "There are some things I need to show you." Samir hesitated. Something about the situation wasn't right. Keisha should have been nervous, scared, not acting like she was in control of the situation. He entered the house and immediately noticed something strange. The living room was simple, but there were framed diplomas on the walls. Samir approached to read them and felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. "Master of Business Administration, Harvard Business School," he read aloud. "Certification in Forensic Auditing, FBI Academy." Keisha appeared beside him carrying a thick folder. "Surprised, Mr. Hassan?" she asked with a smile he had never seen before. It wasn't the submissive smile of a maid. It was the smile of someone who had just revealed their cards. You graduated from Harvard?" Samir stammered. "MBA with a specialization in corporate financial crimes," Keisha replied, opening the briefcase. "And for the past 5 years, while cleaning your house, I've been working on a joint operation between the FBI and the IRS." Samir felt the blood freeze in his veins. Operation Clean House, Keisha said, taking photographs out of the folder. "Investigation of money laundering through the Hassan Hospitality Group hotel chain. I wasn't your cleaning lady, Mr. Hassan. I was your undercover auditor." The photographs showed documents from Samir's office, transcribed phone conversations, suspicious bank transfers. Everything meticulously documented over 5 years. "That's impossible," Samir muttered, feeling his legs go weak. You cleaned my house. I saw you." "And you saw me very well," Keisha said. "But you never really paid attention. To you, I was invisible. And that invisibility gave me access to everything I needed." Keisha pulled more documents from the folder. Fake contracts with ghost suppliers, bank accounts in tax havens, bribes to licensing officials. 5 years of evidence, Mr. Hassan. Samir slumped into a chair, finally understanding the magnitude of the situation. "You've been investigating me all this time. And yesterday when you accused me of stealing your $2.3 million, Keisha continued, that was the last piece I needed. Because now we have you on tape trying to coerce a federal agent and obstruct justice." She showed him a small tape recorder that had been in her blouse the day before. "Did you really think a 5-year federal operation would be uncovered by a private accountant?" Keisha laughed softly. "That $2.3 million wasn't stolen, Mr. Hassan. It was frozen by the IRS as part of the investigation." Samir was in shock. It all started to make sense. Keisha's calmness, her strange words, the way she showed no fear. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked hoarsely. "Because in 2 hours, Federal agents will be knocking on the door of your mansion with search and seizure warrants, Keisha replied, glancing at her watch. And I wanted you to know who the woman who spent 5 years cleaning up your mess really is. At that moment, Samir realized that he had completely underestimated the woman he considered nothing more than an invisible maid. And now it was too late to do anything. 2 hours. Samir stood up abruptly from his chair, panic taking over his expression. You can't do that. I have rights. Keisha calmly closed the folder. You had rights when you decided to launder cartel money through your hotels. You lost those rights when you bribed immigration officials to smuggle people. And you definitely lost them when you threatened a federal agent yesterday. Human trafficking? Samir's face drained of color. I never. Hotel Hassan Miami, rooms 412 to 418, always reserved for special guests who never appear in the system, Keisha interrupted, taking more photos from the folder. Women and children held against their will, forced to work without pay in your other hotels. Samir staggered. How do you know this? Because for 5 years, I didn't just clean your house. I also cleaned the hotel rooms where these people were kept. And I documented everything. Keisha showed Samir photographs that made him feel sick. Rooms locked from the outside, people in deplorable conditions, confiscated documents. Did you really think you could hide a scheme this big from a federal operation? Keisha shook her head. Your arrogance was your downfall, Mr. Hassan. Keisha's phone rang. She answered it in front of Samir. Agent Williams. Yes, he's here with me. Understood, we're on our way. She hung up and looked at Samir. Change of plans. The agents are on their way. Through the window, Samir saw several black cars pulling up in front of the house. Men and women in suits got out of the vehicles, some carrying equipment, others wearing bulletproof vests. This can't be happening, Samir muttered, his legs trembling. The door opened and 3 agents entered. The leader, a man in his 50s, greeted Keisha professionally. Agent Williams, excellent work. This is one of the best documented operations I've ever seen. Thank you, Agent Rodriguez, Keisha replied. 5 years was worth it. Rodriguez turned to Samir. Mr. Hassan, you are under arrest for money laundering, human trafficking, bribery, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. Wait. Samir shouted desperately. I can pay. I have money. We can work something out. Your accounts were frozen 2 hours ago, Rodriguez said coldly. All assets of the Hassan Hospitality Group are being confiscated at this moment. Your hotels are being shut down and the victims of human trafficking are being freed. Samir looked at Keisha with hatred and despair. You destroyed my life. I saved the lives of dozens of people you held captive, Keisha replied emotionlessly. And I brought justice to the families who lost loved ones because of the dirty money you laundered. A second agent approached Rodriguez. Sir, we found Hassan Jr. trying to flee the country at the airport. He's in custody. My son. Samir completely lost control. Leave my son alone. He has nothing to do with this. Hassan Jr. ran the human trafficking operations in Miami and Las Vegas hotels, Keisha said. We have 5 years of evidence against him as well. You investigated my entire family? Samir was in complete shock. We investigated a family crime organization, Rodriguez corrected, which just happened to have you as its leaders. As they handcuffed Samir, Keisha pulled one last document from the folder. "Oh, and about that letter of recommendation you said I could forget about," she said sarcastically. "I don't think I'll need it. The FBI has already offered me a promotion." Samir was led out of the house in handcuffs, under the curious gaze of the neighbors. News cameras were already arriving. Someone had leaked the operation to the press. How did this get to the media? Rodriguez asked Keisha. Maybe someone thought the public deserved to know that the man who presented himself as a respectable businessman was actually running a human trafficking ring, Keisha replied. As the car carrying Samir drove away, Keisha stood at her front door, watching the end of 5 years of hard work. She felt no joy, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing that dozens of lives had been saved. For the first time in 5 years, Keisha Williams could finally stop pretending she was just an invisible cleaning lady. 6 months later, Keisha Williams sat in an FBI conference room in Washington, D.C., receiving the Medal of Merit for Distinguished Service. Her operation had been deemed one of the most successful of the decade in the fight against human trafficking. "Agent Williams," said the FBI director during the ceremony, "your dedication to staying undercover for 5 years saved 47 victims of human trafficking and dismantled a criminal network operating in 8 states." In the audience, families of the freed victims applauded with tears in their eyes. A 19-year-old woman who had been held captive for 3 years in Samir's hotels approached Keisha after the ceremony. "Agent Williams," she said, hugging Keisha, "you gave me my life back. I will never forget you." Keisha held the young woman's hands. "You were the reason I endured 5 years pretending to be invisible. Every day seeing those locked rooms, knowing you were suffering, that's what kept me focused." Meanwhile, Samir Hassan was serving a 45-year federal prison sentence with no possibility of parole. His son received 25 years. The hotel empire had been completely dismantled, and the assets sold to compensate the victims. "The fall was complete," Agent Rodriguez explained to a reporter. "Hassan went from respected billionaire to federal criminal in a matter of hours. And all because he underestimated a woman he considered inferior." The following week, Keisha returned to Los Angeles to finalize some legal proceedings. She decided to stop by Samir's former home, now with the confiscated by the federal government sign at the entrance. What she found there surprised her. Maria, a former employee of the mansion, was waiting outside. "Agent Williams," Maria said nervously, "I wanted to thank you. All these years, I saw how Mr. Hassan treated people badly, especially us women. I never imagined that someone like you was working to bring justice." Keisha smiled. "Maria, how many times did you see me cleaning that office?" "Hundreds of times. I always thought it was strange how thorough you were with that room." "I was documenting every piece of paper, every phone call, every suspicious visitor," Keisha explained. 5 years photographing evidence and recording conversations while everyone thought I was just dusting furniture." Maria shook her head, impressed. "You must have felt very alone all that time." "Sometimes," Keisha admitted. "Especially when I saw the terrible conditions those people were kept in at the hotels. But I knew that every day I worked brought me closer to freeing them." 2 months later, Keisha received an offer to head a new FBI division specializing in human trafficking crimes disguised as legitimate businesses. She accepted immediately. "There are thousands of Samirs out there," she said during an interview on a national television program. "Powerful men who think they can buy, sell, and exploit people as if they were commodities. My mission now is to train other agents to infiltrate these organizations." The interviewer asked, "What would you say to women who feel invisible in their jobs?" Keisha thought for a moment. I would say that sometimes being invisible is a superpower. People show who they really are when they think no one is watching. Use that invisibility to your advantage. Observe, document, learn. Because one day, when they least expect it, you may be the very person who holds them accountable for their crimes. And for men like Samir Hassan? Never underestimate the people you consider inferior. The cleaning lady you ignore could be a federal agent. The secretary you barely acknowledge could be an auditor. The woman you think is just another employee could be the very person who destroys the empire you built on the exploitation of others. That night, Keisha was in her new office at the FBI when she received a letter. It was from one of the victims who had been freed, now studying law and dreaming of becoming a prosecutor. Agent Williams, the letter read, "You taught me that justice isn't just a pretty word. It's something worth fighting for, even when it takes years to achieve. Thank you for never giving up on us." Keisha folded the letter carefully and placed it in a special drawer where she kept all the messages from the victims. They were what reminded her why she had chosen a profession where saving lives meant more than making money. Samir Hassan tried to break Keisha by accusing her of crimes she didn't commit. In the end, he was the one who broke down when he discovered that he had spent 5 years being investigated by the woman he considered nothing more than an invisible maid. The real lesson is that we never know who the people around us really are. Treat everyone with respect, because the person you look down on today may be the one who determines your fate tomorrow. If this story inspired you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that show that, in the end, justice always finds a way.